Noah and his times. These are the chronicles of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, faultless in his generation. Noah walked with God. Noah fathered 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Yefeth. The world was corrupt before God, and the land was filled with crime. God saw the world, and it was corrupted. All flesh had perverted its way on the earth. The great flood. God said to Noah, "The end of all flesh has come before me. The world is filled with man's crime. I will therefore destroy them with the earth. Make yourself an ark of cypress wood. Divide the ark into compartments. Caulk the inside and outside with pitch. This is how you shall construct it. The ark's length shall be 300 cubits, its width 50 cubits, and its height 30 cubits. Make a skylight for the ark. Make it slanted, so that it is 1 cubit wide on top. Place the ark's door on its side. Make the first, second, and third deck. I myself am bringing the flood. Water shall be on the earth to destroy from under the heavens all flesh having in it the breath of life. All that is on land will die. But I will keep my pledge that you will come into the ark. You will be together with your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives. From all life, all flesh, bring 2 of each kind into the ark to live with you. They shall be male and female. From each separate species of bird, from each separate species of livestock, and from each separate species of land animals, bring to yourself 2 of each kind to live. Take with you all the food that will be eaten, and keep it in storage. It shall be food for you and the animals." Noah did all that God had commanded him. He did it exactly. The great flood. God said to Noah, "Come into the ark, you and your family. I have seen that you are righteous before me in this generation. Take 7 pairs of every clean animal, each consisting of a male and its mate. Of every animal that is not clean, take 2, the male and its mate. Of the birds of the heavens also take 7 pairs, each consisting of a male and its mate. Let them keep seed alive on the face of all the earth, because in another 7 days, I will bring rain on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. I will obliterate every organism that I have made from the face of the earth." Noah did all that God had commanded. Noah was 600 years old when the flood occurred. Water was on the earth. Noah, along with his sons, his wife, and his sons' wives, came into the ark ahead of the waters of the flood. The clean animals, the animals which were not clean, the birds, and all that walked the earth came by 2 to Noah, to the ark. They were male and female, as God had commanded Noah. 7 days passed, and the flood waters were on the earth. It was in the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, on the 17th of the month. On that day all the wellsprings of the great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of the heavens were opened. It would continue to rain on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. On that very day, Noah boarded the ark along with his sons, Shem, Ham, and Yefeth. Noah's wife and the 3 wives of his sons were with them. They came along with every separate kind of beast, every separate kind of livestock, every separate kind of land animal, and every separate kind of flying creature, every bird and every winged animal. Of all flesh that has in it the breath of life, they came to Noah, to the ark, 2 by 2. Those who came were male and female. Of all flesh they came, as God had commanded Noah. God then sealed him inside. There was a flood on the earth for 40 days. The waters increased, lifting the ark, and it rose from on the ground. The waters surged and increased very much, and the ark began to drift on the surface of the water. The waters on the earth surged upward very, very much, and all the high mountains under the heavens were covered. The waters had surged upward 15 cubits, and all the mountains were covered. All flesh that walked the earth perished, birds, livestock, wild beasts, and every lower animal that swarmed on the land, as well as every human being. Everything on dry land whose life was sustained by breathing died. The flood thus obliterated every organism that had been on the face of the land, humanity, livestock, land animals, and birds of the heaven. They were obliterated from the earth. Only Noah and those with him in the ark survived. The waters surged on the earth for 150 days. The great flood. God gave special thought to Noah, and to all the beasts and livestock with him in the ark. God made the wind blow on the earth, and the waters began to subside. The wellsprings of the deep and the floodgates of heaven were sealed. The downpour from the heavens thus stopped. The waters receded from the earth. They continued to recede, and at the end of 150 days, the water had visibly diminished. In the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, the ark came to rest on the Ararat mountains. The waters continued to diminish visibly until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the 1st of the month, the mountain peaks became visible. After 40 days, Noah opened the window he had made in the ark. He sent out the raven, and it departed. It went back and forth until the water had dried up from the land's surface. He then sent out the dove to see if the water had subsided from the land's surface. The dove could not find any place to rest its feet, and it returned to him, to the ark. There was still water over all the earth's surface. Noah stretched out his hand, and brought it to him in the ark. He waited another 7 days, and once again sent the dove out from the ark. The dove returned to him toward evening, and there was a freshly plucked olive leaf in its beak. Noah then knew that the water had subsided from the earth. He waited yet another 7 days and sent out the dove again. This time it did not return to him anymore. In the 601st year of Noah's life, in the 1st month on the 1st of the month, the land was drained off, and Noah removed the ark's hatch. He saw that the land's surface was beginning to dry. By the 2nd month, on the 27th day of the month, the land was completely dry. Aftermath of the flood. God spoke to Noah, saying, "Leave the ark, you, along with your wife, your sons, and your sons' wives. Take out with you every living creature from all flesh, birds, livestock, and all land animals that walk the earth. Let them swarm on the land. They shall breed and multiply on the earth." Noah left the ark along with his sons, his wife, and his sons' wives. every beast, every land animal, and every bird, all that walk in the land, left the ark by families. Noah built an altar to God. He took a few of all the clean livestock and all the clean birds, and he sacrificed completely burnt offerings on the altar. God smelled the appeasing fragrance, and God said to himself, Never again will I curse the soil because of man, for the inclination of man's heart is evil from his youth. I will never again strike down all life as I have just done. As long as the earth lasts, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, and day and night, shall never again cease to exist. Aftermath of the flood, God blessed Noah and his children. He said to them, Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth. There shall be a fear and dread of you instilled in all the wild beasts of the earth, and all the birds of the sky, in all that will walk the land, and in all the fish of the sea. I have placed them in your hands. Every moving thing that lives shall be to you as food. Like plant vegetation, I have now given you everything. But nevertheless, you may not eat flesh of a creature that is still alive. Only of the blood of your own lives will I demand an account. I will demand such an account from the hand of every wild beast, from the hand of man, even from the hand of a man's own brother. I will demand an account of every human life. He who spills human blood shall have his own blood spilled by man, for God made man with his own image. Now be fruitful and multiply, swarm all over the earth and become populous on it. The rainbow God said to Noah and his sons with him, I myself am making a covenant with you and with your offspring after you. It will also include every living creature that is with you among the birds, the livestock, and all the beasts of the earth with you, all who left the ark, including every animal on earth. I will make my covenant with you, and all life will never be cut short by the waters of a flood. There will never again be a flood to destroy the earth. God said, This is the sign that I am providing for the covenant between me, you, and every living creature that is with you, for everlasting generations. I have placed my rainbow in the clouds, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. When I bring clouds over the earth, the rainbow will be seen among the clouds. I will then recall the covenant that exists between me, you, and every living soul in all flesh. The rainbow will be in the clouds, and I will see it to recall the eternal covenant between God and every living soul in all flesh that is on the earth. God said to Noah, This is the sign of the covenant that I have made between me and all flesh on the earth. Canaan is cursed. The sons of Noah who emerged from the ark were Shem, Ham, and Yefeth. Ham was the father of Canaan. These three were Noah's sons, and from them, the whole world was repopulated. Noah began to be a man of the soil, and he planted a vineyard. He drank some of the wine, making himself drunk, and uncovered himself in the tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father naked, and he told it to his brothers outside. Shem and Yefeth took a cloak and placed it on both their shoulders. Walking backwards, they then covered their father's nakedness. They faced away from him and did not see their father naked. Noah awoke from his wine-induced sleep, and he realized what his youngest son had done to him. He said, Cursed is Canaan. He shall be a slave to his brothers. He then said, Blessed be God, the Lord of Shem. Canaan shall be his slave. May God expand Yefeth, but may he dwell in the tents of Shem. Let Canaan be their slave. Noah lived 350 years after the flood. All of Noah's days were 950 years, and he died. Descendants of Yefeth and Ham. These are the chronicles of Noah's sons, Shem, Ham, and Yefeth. Children were born to them after the flood. The sons of Yefeth were Gomer, Magog, Madai, Yavan, Tubal, Meshach, and Tiras. The sons of Gomer were Ashkenaz, Rephath, and Togarmah. The sons of Yavan were Elishah, Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodianim. From these the isolated nations branched out into their lands. Each had its own language for its families in its nations. The sons of Ham were Cush, Mitzrayim, Put, and Canaan. The sons of Cush were Sbha, Havilah, Sabita, Ram, and Sabita. The sons of Ram were Sheba and Dedan. Cush was the father of Nimrod, who was the first to amass power in the world. He was a mighty trapper before God. There is thus a saying, like Nimrod, a mighty trapper before God. The beginning of his kingdom was Babylon, along with Erech, Jakat, and Calneh, in the land of Shinar. Hastor left that land, and he built Nineveh, Rehoboth, and Calach, as well as a recent, between Nineveh and Calach. Nineveh is a great city. Mitzrayim fathered the Lubim, the Anakim, the Luhabhim, the Naphtuchim, the Pathruzim, and the Caphluchim, from whom the Philistines descended, and the Caphtorim. Descendants of Canaan. Canaan fathered Sidon his firstborn and Hate, as well as the Jebusites, the Amorites, the Girgashites, the Hivites, the Arkites, the Sinites, the Arvadites, the Tsamirites, and the Camathites. Later the families of the Canaanites became scattered. The Canaanite borders extended from Sidon toward Gerar until Gaza, and toward Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Savoim, until Lasha. These are the descendants of Ham, according to their families and languages, by their lands and nations. Descendants of Shem's sons were also born to Shem. He was the ancestor of the Hebrews, and the brother of Yefeth, the eldest. The sons of Shem were Elam, Hastur, Arpachshad, Lud, and Abram. The sons of Abram were Uz, Chol, Gether, and Mash. Arpachshad had a son Shelach. Shelach had a son Eber. Eber had two sons. The name of the first was Peleg, because the world became divided in his days. His brother's name was Yoktan. Yoktan was the father of Almodad, Sheleth, Chatsarmadah, Yereth, Hadram, Uzal, Deplicable, Abhimael, Yeshabah, Over, Havlah, and Yobath. All these were the sons of Yorkatan. Their settlements extended from Mesah toward Sephir, the eastern mountain. These are the descendants of Shem, according to their families and languages, by their lands and nations. Such were the families of Noah's sons, according to their chronicles in their nations. From these, the nations spread over the earth after the flood. The Tower of Babel. The entire earth had one language with uniform words. When the people migrated from the east, they found a valley in the land of Shinar, and they settled there. They said to one another, "Come, let us mold bricks and fire them." They then had bricks to use as stone, and asphalt for mortar. They said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city, and a tower whose top shall reach the sky. Let us make ourselves a name, so that we will not be scattered all over the face of the earth." God descended to see the city and the tower that the sons of man had built. God said, "They are a single people, all having one language, and this is the first thing they do. Now nothing they plan to do will be unattainable for them. Come, let us descend and confuse their speech, so that one person will not understand another's speech." From that place, God scattered them all over the face of the earth, and they stopped building the city. He named it Babel, because this was the place where God confused the world's language. It was from there that God dispersed humanity over all the face of the earth. The 11th generation. These are the chronicles of Shem. Shem was 100 years old when he had a son Arpachshad, 2 years after the flood. Shem lived 500 years after he had Arpachshad, and he had sons and daughters. The 12th generation. Arpachshad was 35 years old when he had a son Shelah. Arpachshad lived 403 years after he had Shelah, and he had sons and daughters. The 13th generation. Shelah was 30 years old when he had a son Eber. Shelah lived 403 years after he had Eber, and he had sons and daughters. The 14th generation. Eber was 34 years old when he had a son Peleg. Eber lived 430 years after he had Peleg, and he had sons and daughters. The 15th generation. Peleg was 30 years old when he had a son Aru. Peleg lived 209 years after he had Aru, and he had sons and daughters. The 16th generation. Aru was 32 years old when he had a son Serug. Aru lived 207 years after he had Serug, and he had sons and daughters. The 17th generation. Serug was 30 years old when he had a son Benacher. Serug lived 200 years after he had Benacher, and he had sons and daughters. The 18th generation. Benacher was 29 years old when he had a son Terach. Benacher lived 119 years after he had Terach, and he had sons and daughters. Abram. Terach was 70 years old when he fathered Abram, Benacher, and Haran. These are the chronicles of Terach. Terach fathered Abram, Benacher, and Haran. Haran had a son Lot. Haran died during the lifetime of his father Terach, in the land of his birth, Ur-Kasdim. Abram and Benacher married. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai. The name of Benacher's wife was Milcah, the daughter of Haran, who was the father of Milcah and Yiscah. Sarai was sterile, she had no children. Terach took his son Abram, his grandson Lot, Haran's son, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, Abram's wife. With them, he left Ur-Kasdim, heading toward the land of Canaan. They came as far as Haran and settled there. All of Terach's days were 205 years, and Terach died in Haran.